John Noe unveils Greater Than We Believe with your host, Stephen King.
Well, hello again. It's good to see you. This is Stephen King and my friend John Noe. We're coming back with another in a series of Bible studies. The name of our series is called Greater Than We Believe. We have been on a subject here lately based on this book, Hell Yes, Hell No, written by John Noe back in 2011, and the whole subject of hell itself and legitimacy of the argument of eternal torment. We have already had several studies we've gone through. Today is video number 203, Hell Yes, Hell No, Hell Etymology. Etymology is basically a study of words and the history of the words, how it came to be and what, so forth and so on. So John's going to help us understand some words, especially hell. Where did it come from? If it's not legitimate, what's the deal with it? So John, start us off and tell us about hail.
Well, it's going to be shocking.
Shocking, okay.
Shocking etymology.
Okay.
And other hellish problems.
Yeah.
How's that? All right, let me start off by asking you a question.
Okay.
What's the opposite of these words?
Okay.
To torment and punish forever. What's the opposite? To torment and punish forever. What is the opposite?
Bless, protect, I don't know. Hard to say.
How about to cover, conceal, and protect for a temporary period of time?
Okay.
That's what hell means.
Okay.
Not to torment and punish forever, but the word hell means to cover, conceal, and protect.
So what it means is the exact opposite of what hell's supposed to mean.
Do you think?
I think. Okay.
Shockingly.
Okay.
Did I tell you it was going to be shocking?
It's shocking.
Perhaps for some, and perhaps for you, this latter phrase is the etymology, or the origin and meaning, for our modern day word, H-E-L-L. Mm-hmm. Hell. Moreover, it comes from a pagan source and not from the Bible. And this source also has little, if any, resemblance to our modern day images of H-E-L-L. Mm-hmm. Etymology, Stephen, is a study of the origin, history, and derivation of words. The new Encyclopedia Britannica confirms this little-known etymology for hell this way. Hell, it says, the abode or state of being of evil spirits or souls that are damned to post-mortem punishment, derived from the Anglo-Saxon word meaning to conceal or to cover. Interesting, huh? Stay tuned. Webster's Dictionary explains that hell comes from Middle English or Old English or Old High German hell, H-E-L, or Helle, H-E-L-L-E, or Helen, H-E-L-A-N, and arose during the Anglo-Saxon period of A.D. 400 to A.D. 1100. And our word, helmet. Mm-hmm. You ride a motorcycle.
Yeah.
But you probably don't know he's a motorcycle guy. Got a nice motorcycle. Our word helmet is derived from this same etymology, this same root, this same meaning.
To cover the head.
Notably, a helmet does what?
It covers
torments
the head.
and
No, it covers and conceals the head.
yeah, it covers, conceals, and protects.
Yeah.
That's what the word hell means. Mm-hmm. Isn't that something?
Wow.
Shocking?
Shocking.
It certainly does not mean to torment or punish one's head.
Right.
how could you ride a motorcycle and your head was being tormented? Similarly, the word hell, H-E-L, or helle, was used in Europe during the Middle Ages when potato farmers would hell their potatoes. That is, during the winter, they would cover and conceal and protect their potatoes by digging holes in the ground, putting their potatoes in the ground in those holes, and covering them with dirt. And these farmers refer to this process as putting their potatoes in hell. And again, for the purpose of care and protection, not torment and punishment.
Wow.
Today, up here in our kitchen, my wife conceals and protects potatoes that she buys at the grocery store by storing them in a dark place.
Yes.
Because you don't want to put them in a place that has light, or they'll
grow vines.
They'll spout buds and go soft and bad, and quicker in a lighter place than they would in a darker place. And in some parts of England, the country England, it is also said that to cover a building with a roof of tiles or thatch was to hell a building. And the job was done by workers called helliers for that reason.
The hellier, you say.
Therefore, to hell a house meant to cover and protect it with a roof. And I'm told that the term helling a house is still used in New England in portions of the United, that portion of the United States. Ironically, but in keeping with the etymology of the original meaning of hell, we are still helling most deceased people today. Do you know how we hell them? Do you know how we might hell them? How so? When every time a person dies, we put them in a casket, for example, one way, close the lid, place the casket in a vault, and lower the casket into the ground and cover it back over with dirt, right? Just like helling potatoes.
Yep.
Of course, this would not apply to people who are cremated.
Right.
That destroys the body.
Yeah.
But that means to cover, conceal, and protect. Thus, the origin and basis and basic meaning of the word hell has absolutely nothing to do with an otherworldly afterlife place or with a place of eternal torment and punishment with no hope of escape. That connotation and that derivation had to come later. But the modern day meaning evolved and devolved, perhaps would be a better way of saying it, depending on your perspective, from referring to the common earthly grave of all deceased human beings into being today a netherworld place of eternal conscious torment and punishment for the damned. Isn't that something? That's the etymology of hell. Consequently, most of our thinking about hell and hellfire today did not come from the Bible, because hell is never properly translated, used in the Bible, as we've discussed, or from its etymology and historical usage. Of course, words can and often do change their meaning over time. Therefore, hell may or may not be a certain guiding on this. But the fact is that our modern day word hell, H-E-L-L, is derived more from Dante's Divine Comedy or Milton's Paradise Lost or the Roman Catholic Church than from this etymology. And it also could be derived from the beliefs of other religions. For example, the Babylonians and Assyrians believed in another world, and it was a place where the gods and the demons of great strength fiercely presided over the damned. And the Egyptians believed in another world, which was a place of pits and fire, and of the damned souls that were there. So, consistent with this background on hell that we have been discussing so far in this video, the Anglican theologian N.T. Wright, in his book Surprised by Hope, admits and surmises, quote, and let me have you read this.
Okay.
Pages 176 to 177, what I got marked in yellow there,
Okay.
if you will. N.T. Wright.
The point is that when Jesus was warning his hearers about Gehenna, he was not, as a general rule, telling them that unless they repented in this life, they would burn in the next one. Rome would turn Jerusalem into a hideous, stinking extension of its own smoldering rubbish heap. It is therefore only by extension and with difficulty that we can extrapolate from the many gospel sayings that articulate this urgent, immediate warning to the deeper question of a warning about what may happen after death itself. Jesus simply didn't say very much about the future life. He was, after all, primarily concerned to announce that God's kingdom was coming on earth as in heaven. We cannot therefore look to Jesus' teaching for any fresh detail on whether there really are some who finally reject God.
Isn't that something coming from N.T. Wright?
Yeah.
Now, usually I call him
N.T.
N.T.
wrong.
wrong because he's got other things in here which I don't agree with.
Yeah.
But that, N.T. Wright, surprise my hope. That he does certainly have right. So, if our traditional and scripturally based case for Hell, using Gehenna, unquestionable fire, and a change of meaning of the word hell is at best highly suspect.
Yes.
Then there is nothing to fear, then is there nothing to fear after this life is over? Are all the other afterlife warnings in the Bible to be dismissed then as meaningless or misleading or incorrect? Is there no post-mortem justice? What about the other three biblical words sometimes translated as hell, like Sheol and Hades and Tartarus? And what about other associated terminology like weeping and gnashing of teeth, or fire and brimstone, or outer darkness, or the abyss, or the bottomless pit, or the lake of fire, and eternal punishment? Will these places and these phrases support our traditional understandings about hell or not? Let's see.
Yeah.
So let's start with Sheol.
Okay.
Sheol, the temporary unseen place of the dead. For Old Testament Jews, Sheol was that place. Temporary afterlife holding place of the souls of all the dead. And it is portrayed as a dark, shadowy dungeon in which there is no activity worth mentioning, nor were there any moral distinctions. Everybody was lumped together. Interestingly, the old King James Version of the Old Testament translates Sheol's 65 uses or appearances as hell 31 times, the grave 31 times, and is a generic in a generic sense, and the pit 3 times. Isn't that something?
Yeah.
Most modern day translations no longer translate any of Sheol's uses as hell. None. Zero. Nada. Preferring instead the grave, the pit, or simply death. All of which prompts Moody Senior Church Senior Pastor Edwin Lutzer to concede that this inconsistency in translation has caused some to be confused. Well, no kidding. Regarding what Sheol really means, especially if you got, the old King James version translating it mixedly.
Yeah.
In the original Hebrew, the term Sheol means unseen. Notably, this unseen afterlife place in the Old Testament was not a place of punishment. Jacob was there. We see this in Genesis 37:35 and 42:38 and 44:29-31. The righteous Job longed for it. Job 14:13. David spoke of going there. Psalm 49, 14 through 15, and even Jesus went there. Psalm 16:10 and Acts 2, 24 and 31. In these cases and more, Stephen, dead souls were unseen because they were in an otherworldly abode of the departed in Sheol. And they were all awaiting the general resurrection of the dead on the last day of the last days. Last day. John 6:39 and 40 and 44 and 54 and 11:24. And according to Jesus, the reason they were still waiting was because heaven was not open yet.
Right.
John 3:13 and 13:33 and 36. Then, writing around 57 AD, the Apostle Paul in 1 Corinthians 15, 54 through 55, cites portions of these two Old Testament Sheol passages in expectation of the imminent, get those two words mixed up every now and then, imminent fulfillment of the resurrection of the dead. Paul says, "Where, O death, is your victory? Where, O death, is your sting?" Where did he get this? He got this from Hosea 13:44. Quote, I don't have you doing that one, do I?
Oh, no.
Okay. "I will ransom them from the power of the grave," i.e. Sheol. "I will redeem them from death. Where, O death, are your plagues? Where, O grave, or Sheol," that's what the word Sheol is your destruction. Paul, secondly, said this, "Death has been swallowed up in victory," quoted from Isaiah 25:8. Which says, "He will swallow up death forever. The sovereign Lord will wipe away tears from all faces." How many is all?
All.
Isn't that something? We're going to be addressing that word later.
Yep.
"He will remove the grace of his people from all the earth, the Lord has spoken." Isn't that interesting? Sheol is also used in a figurative sense to speak of a national or city judgments in terms of vanishing of a nation or city. In Isaiah 14:15 prophesies of Babylon being brought down to the grave, as Sheol, to the depths of the pit, as Sheol. Ezekiel 26:19 through 21 prophesies of Tyre being made a desolate city and brought down to open depths, to the pit, and in the earth below. That's Sheol. Historically, this nation and this city did not go to a particular location in this world or another worldly place. They simply were destroyed and disappeared and ceased to exist. Likewise, Deuteronomy 32:22 and following verses, Sheol language is coupled with fiery national judgment that God would bring on Israel in her latter days because of her idolatry. Deuteronomy 31:29 and 32:29. And this too, Stephen, has no application to an afterlife called hell. In a broader and figurative application, Sheol is also used to refer to any gloomy or miserable state of degraded condition or extreme suffering without any reference to its cause. Therefore, Collier's Encyclopedia, which I don't have that here, that's at the seminary on Butler's campus, Christian Theological Seminary, I got this, writes this about the Hebrew Sheol. Says this, first, it, and then they have in parentheses, hell, stands for the Hebrew Sheol of the Old Testament and the Greek Hades of the Septuagint and the New Testament. Since Sheol in the Old Testament times referred simply to the abode of the dead and suggests no moral distinctions between people. Right. You didn't have the righteous and the unrighteous.
Right.
No moral distinction. And then they say this, the word hell, which it has in quotes, is as understood today is not a happy translation. That's an understatement, don't you think? Not a happy translation. Hello. Correspondingly, the Encyclopedia Americana at the seminary again, has this to say about our modern day confusion and misunderstandings. They say, much confusion and misunderstanding has been caused through the early translations of the Bible, persistently rendered the Hebrew Sheol and Greek Hades and Gehenna by the word hell. The simple transliteration of these words by the translators of the revised editions of the Bible has not sufficed to appreciably clean up, and notice how it terms this confusion and misconception.
Yes.
Well, once something is done, it's hard to get it back.
Yeah.
Some scholars cite the Greek teaching of immorality. Immorality. Am I saying that?
Immortality?
No, immorality.
Immorality, okay.
Badness.
Yeah.
The Greek teaching of immorality of the human soul and the netherworld, which probably began to infiltrate Jewish teachings around the time of Alexander the Great, as the reason for the Hebrew Sheol corresponding with the Greek Hades, and both were viewed synonymously as being the unseen place of the dead, and not a place filled with fire, torture, and streams of torment. Rather, they were understood to be a place of gloom and darkness. Job 10:21. Of resting and silence, Psalm 115:17. And neither pain nor pleasure, and neither reward or punishment. And all the dead were there, all the dead. In this invisible world or state of the dead without distinction, the good and the bad, the rich and the poor, the Jews and the Gentiles, the kings and the paupers, all slept together in this shadowy spirit realm abode, awaiting the resurrection of the dead. Yet it was not seen as a place of separation from God. Why not? Because Scripture states that God was there. Would you please read for us 2 scriptures that discuss this? First one, Psalm 139, 7 through 8.
139, 7 and 8. Where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? If I go up to the heavens, you're there. And if I make my bed in the depths, you are there.
God is there. And Amos 9, 1 through 2.
I saw the Lord standing by the altar, and he said, smash the tops of the pillars so that the thresholds shake. Cut off the heads of all the people. Those who are left I will kill with the sword. Not one will get away, none will escape. And verse 2 says, though they dig down to the depths of the grave, from there my hand will take them. Though they climb up to the heavens, from there I will bring them down. Can't get away.
Can't get away. That God is there.
Yep.
Isn't that something? In our next video, we will go to Hades. And we're not going to hell. We're going to Hades. And we're going to explore a lot more.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, John. Folks, that really kind of cleared up a little bit for me. I'd read the book, 3 times now? And I'd forgotten what the etymology was about it being like a helmet. It's not only to protect it, but it also like a dark place. And the helmet, it makes sense. That's what I remember reading. And the helling of the potatoes and things like that. So they've taken that word hell and completely screwed it up.
That's the etymology.
Yeah.
It's cover, protect, and conceal.
And conceal, right. So, and now going into Hades next week, I'm glad we're doing that too. Hades has kind of been abused also. So I'm looking forward to seeing you folks back here next week so that we can go into the Hades discussion. And at some point, eventually, we'll get this book finished. But for right now, we're still in the middle of it. We got a lot to go. So I hope you come back and see us. God bless you. Good night. All right.